It is truly an honor to present to the Global Scientific Guild and the international communities here at the second annual Global Webinar on Public Health. Welcome to the first day of the conference, and an immense thanks to all in attendance and those who will access this conference in the future. Over the next few days, you will hear from delegates, directors, experts, researchers, professors, and scholars from both academia and industry on current global mental and physical health issues. My name is Professor Ezra Lockhart, and my opening keynote address is on the global impact of internet gaming disorder. I am a researcher and practicing mental health counselor, master addiction counselor, and clinical supervisor in multiple states in the US and in Canada. I'm a professor at Yorkville University in Canada, an affiliate faculty with the Colorado School for Family Therapy, and have an 18-year career in the addictions and mental health fields. I specialize in autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, and addictions, both substance and process disorders like gaming disorder and internet gaming disorder. Please feel free to contact me for research collaboration, clinical consultation in these areas. Throughout this address, I want you to consider the words of Christian Lois Lang, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and the world's foremost theorist on internationalism. Technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master. Computers, mobile devices, smartphones, and access to the internet have become ubiquitous. Computer technology and internet access are now commonplace, whether it is at home, work sites, or internet cafes. Internet cafes are widely used techno-social spaces, primarily in Asian countries. Economic, political, and social functioning of modern societies now hinge on both these technologies. What I want you to think about is the impact of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Reddit, and the link on how we learn, socialize, and ultimately make decisions, especially as employees, consumers of goods and services, and voters. For leisure, recreation, and entertainment, people are using both technology, computer technology, and the internet. I want to draw your attention to figure 1 here. The International Telecommunications Union reported that 83.2% of the developed world and 36.3% of the undeveloped world have a computer in the household. In countries around the world, youth are using internet at higher rates than adults. The ITU also reported 80.9% of the population of developed countries and 45.3% of developing countries use the internet in some form or another. As you can see, there's a difference in the percentages between computer access in households and access to the internet. There is a 9% difference in the undeveloped world, internet access, or comparing internet access and household computers. For those without access to the internet at home, internet cafes have become an alternative techno-social space, which is increasingly popular in Asian countries, as mentioned before. Given internet cafes, the estimates for computer and internet use are higher given these techno-social spaces. Both access to computers and the internet have led to higher daily use of each of these technologies, resulting in people spending long periods of time in front of a computer screen. 2 billion internet users globally is the estimate, with 325 million users in the US. 77% of adults and youth are choosing computer games as a form of recreation. And I want to note this computer games is computer technology-based games. So this also includes mobile devices. Recently, research highlights that online gaming is now a normal aspect of contemporary cultures and societies. However, a portion of the population are developing unhealthy preoccupations with computer gaming activities, especially those on the internet. In 2018, the ICD-11 listed gaming disorder as an official diagnosis, while the DSM-5 listed internet gaming disorder as a condition warranting further investigation. That call for research by the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, has been in effect since 2013. The literature base identifies 6 features associated with pathological gaming. An average weekly time investment between 25.5 and 38.2 hours per week. And that's really the difference between a part-time and full-time employment. A habitual routine, upwards of 85 hours per week. Preoccupation outside of gameplay, especially in terms of gamer community engagement on social media, online gaming forums, and out-of-game strategizing for gameplay. Using gameplay to alleviate feelings of helplessness, guilt, anxiety, and depression, struggling with feelings of restlessness, irritability, frustration, anger, anxiety, or sadness when attempting to reduce or stop gameplay. And lastly, neglect and abandonment of physical health, schooling, employment, relationships, and even child rearing. What are the responses from the World Health Organization, WHO, and the American Psychiatric Association, APA? The World Health Organization, via the ICD-11, like I said earlier, made the diagnosis official in 2018. These are the codes 6C51.0 and 0.1, and the difference is between online and offline gameplay. So offline would be gaming consoles, but note that most gaming consoles are connected to the internet in some mean or another. It must be present over a 12-month period, so a year, and bipolar disorder cannot be the best description of the behaviors. So according to the ICD-11, the behavioral pattern in gaming disorder must be sufficient severity to result in significant impairments in personal, family, social, and educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The pattern must be continuous or episodic and recurrent, but again, over a year period. And of note, the ICD-11 is not widely used by clinicians. What is the response from the APA? Well, in 2013, the DSM-5 called for further investigation on this disorder. The APA and earlier research by Petrie's team noted this disorder has clear merit, yet sufficient data does not exist. In 2014, and just a year later, an international work group headed by Petrie convened to propose diagnostic criteria. This construct has been discussed extensively in the research literature. However, there's no consensus whether or not these problematic online gaming behaviors are more akin to gambling disorder or substance abuse disorder. In an attempt to further the debate and potentially resolve the controversy, an international work group of 12 experts representing 9 countries, and those 9 countries are Australia, China, France, Germany, Mexico, the Netherlands, Singapore, Spain, and the US. They convened to discuss an earlier DSM-5 work group findings, again by Petrie's team. They interpreted the 9 proposed criteria that came out of that work group. The proposed criteria was translated into 10 different languages to aid in arriving at what the work group's aim was, which is meaning and interpretation for each of the criterion. Petrie and colleagues in 2014 proposed that internet gaming disorder is the presence of excessive online gameplay behavior that produces clinical impairment. That work group proposed 9 diagnostic criteria, which later was refined by the international research team as preoccupation, withdrawal, tolerance, persistence, displacement, problems, deception, escape, and conflict. And problems is negative consequences from gameplay. However, there are no established clinical thresholds or criteria cutoff requirements for this disorder to date. In other words, the number of criteria out of 9 an individual must meet has yet to be defined. However, the workshop group recommended 5 or more of these symptoms within a year period. The proposed condition is limited to gaming and does not include problems with general use of the internet, online gambling, use of social media, or smartphones. The International Workgroup also concluded that problematic online gaming behavior shared more in common with substance use disorders rather than problematic or pathological gambling. An earlier empirical-driven study by Walters and colleagues in 2012 also concluded this. There has been some extreme presentations of problematic online gaming behaviors that have led to death by exhaustion, suicide, infanticide, and even homicide. I have a study in development that reviewed the past 20 years of severe problematic online gaming behaviors reported in news media. As you can see to the right, most crimes related to pathological gaming originates in Asian countries. However, the US ranked 3rd amongst this grouping of countries. Note that there is a limited reporting and access to reports out of North Korea. Therefore, the data was absent in my study. China and South Korea have the highest incident reported during this period, with death by exhaustion, reported mostly in internet cafes. These cases are mostly male. However, there is 1 female reported. 7 of these cases are out of China. Sadly enough, infanticide has been reported, whether the death was intentional or unintentional by means of neglect. However, most children were intentionally killed in order for the gamer to continue to engage in pathological gameplay. South Korea reported 5 cases, while the US reported 3 of those 8 cases total. I'd like to take a moment to bring some faces to these numbers as we are talking about human life and not just statistics. A 72-hour-long online gaming session led to the death of a male in Taiwan. A 40-hour gaming session led to the death of a male in China. A 50-hour gaming session caused the death of a male in South Korea. A couple has their child or their children removed from the household due to neglect. The girl's hair were matted with urine and were malnourished to the point of near death. Another couple in Korea neglected their infant to both play World of Warcraft, resulting in their infant's death. And another couple in Korea abandoned their real-life infant to raise a virtual infant in-game. Suicide has been reported in the media, especially for MMORPG players who experience in-game death, penalties, hardships, and when access to their preferred game is restricted. The most famous case of suicide related to gaming, gaming is well known in the gaming community, is Sean Woolley. Back in 2002. This is the earliest reported case linked to online gaming. He was a 20-year-old Wisconsin native, that's in the US, who committed suicide by firearm in his apartment while logged into a game called EverQuest. EverQuest is one of the first MMORPGs, which Sean reportedly played 12 hours every day. The lead game designer for the MMORPG Star Wars Galaxies, Jeff Freeman, committed suicide in 2008. More recently, Byron Bernstein took his life in July of 2020 at the age of 31 years old. Byron was the highest ranked player versus player for 6 consecutive tournament seasons starting in 2009, playing World of Warcraft. Those were some of the most extreme cases of problematic online gaming or pathological gaming. However, not all gaming is problematic. Recall our earlier discussion about preoccupation outside of gameplay as an indicator of pathological gaming. Historically, pathological gaming has been conceptualized by the sole indicator of time investment, which means the more time you invest in gameplay, the more at risk you are of developing a pathology. Most studies prior to 2015, and still some to date, use time investment as screening and assessment measures. Recent debate, however, calls this into question. In fact, due to the popularity of online games, it is not entirely straightforward to make the assumption or assertion that time investment and preoccupation with online gameplays are indicative of problematic use. This is further complicated by the recent social cultural acceptability of online gaming as a form of leisure, recreation, and entertainment. Given this argument, recent studies point to preoccupation outside of gameplay as a better indicator of pathological use. As you can see from the 12 studies cited here, there are potential benefits of online gameplay, and I just want to point out a few. There has been studies that purport that social supports is increased. Rapport building skills are strengthened. Individuals beyond relaxation and entertainment find joy and fulfillment in playing online games. Individuals have been able to decrease their anxiety, regulate their emotions, gain insights to their problems, and develop coping skills. Let's dive deeper into who is gaming. Across the globe, there is a stereotypical gamer that comes to mind. The stereotype is young, male, obese, lacking intimate relationships, jobless, or underemployed. Research reveals otherwise. Most gamers are actually adults with an average age of 35, and gender is rather even at 54% male and 46% female. Emerging research is finding couples that game together or play different gaming genres in their households will sustain gaming longer. This isn't to say that youth do not game. As you can see in figure 3, research revealed that male and female youth are gaming at slightly higher rates than male youth at 77% compared to female youth at 54%. Most console gaming is now played online, so the data has become murky when considering online and offline problematic or pathological gaming. What has emerged in the research literature is national prevalence estimates of problematic online gaming behaviors, specifically on the internet. So most gameplays have an internet connectivity component, as I mentioned earlier. National representative samples for both Eastern and Western countries reported in 2016 indicate prevalence rates range rather widely between 2.4% and 45%. I completed a study which is under review that found varying prevalence rates across countries. I found prevalence rates range from 2.1% to 17.7%, so a tighter gap than what was previously found. As a point of comparison, the global prevalence rate of depression ranged from 2.6% to 5.9%. And note, depression is the single largest contributor to disability and death by suicide. I also want you to note that problematic online gaming prevalence rates depicted here are pre-COVID-19 pandemic estimates. So given the global pandemic, 1, there's been a decreased opportunity and setting for socialization. 2, there's lower employment rates. And 3, voluntary and involuntary social isolation all contribute to higher prevalence rates. This review of the literature found 21 studies reporting prevalence rates of problematic online gaming behaviors from 22 different countries. The majority of these studies are recent, between 2014 and 2019. However, the only prevalence data reported for the US was in 2009 and 2010 for Australia. And I want to point out that prevalence rates for the US has been hard to capture, again, since 2009, because industry has taken over collection of player demographics. So it's not very accessible to researchers, and/or the process in which the data is collected from industry is non-standardized, making it difficult to interpret. As you can see from figure 4 here, Asian countries cluster towards the top, meaning the highest prevalence, with South Korea and Japan at the median. However, there is suspected underreporting in these two countries. Social cultural differences between Asian and other countries might partially account for the higher prevalence rates. The US is estimated to have 8.5% of the population impacted. However, lack of an official diagnosis, non-standard screening and assessment tools, varied terminologies, lack of clinical specialists have led to poor epidemiological fidelity. Surely problematic gaming is a global crisis. There is a paucity of research on the cultural influences of problematic gaming. There are investigations on digital gamer culture and identity, misogyny, techno-masculinity, gender role expectations, toxic gamer culture are all well known. However, little is known about how real-world culture is influential to gaming culture. In relation to cultural differences, O'Farrell's research team in 2020 found in their investigation of multicultural societies spanning 74 countries that individualistic cultures reported higher levels of depression and problematic online gaming behaviors than collectivistic cultures. It is unknown whether stigma surrounding mental health, inadequate access to mental health services, the expectation that family members should exclusively provide support, or the hikikomori effect, which is pathological social withdrawal originating in Japan, contributes to underreporting of depression in collectivistic cultures, especially in light of the higher national prevalence rates of problematic online gaming behaviors in Asian countries, which are typically collectivistic cultures. One presumption is problematic online gaming are reported at higher rates in collectivistic cultures due to employers, scholastic staff, social workers, and community members. Decreased personality trait openness has been found to link with problematic online gaming behaviors. However, the specific study, which was Wang and colleagues 2015, lacked generalizability given the fact that it excluded collectivistic cultures, as members of collectivistic cultures are generally associated with high levels of personality traits openness. Therein, it can be assumed that the naturally high levels of personality trait openness in the target population will appear to be correlated with most investigated phenomena. There has been a marked decline in prevalence rates of problematic online gaming after 2014, with the APA proposed diagnostic criteria for internet gaming disorder. Diagnostic guidance and a formal request for further research in this area from the APA presumably increased epidemiological fidelity. Notwithstanding these prevalence rates, problematic online gaming behavior is a global crisis, which the WHO has responded to. Notwithstanding strong academic debate, it calls into question the clinical validity of pathological gaming, so gaming disorder, internet gaming disorder, given the two proposed disorders from the WHO and the APA. As you can see, there's varied, the Clinical fidelity is confounded by several items. So varied terminology, differing theoretical underpinnings, misclassification of symptomatology, misidentification of the predictors, low cross-cultural generalizability, validity, and reliability, multiple non-standard assessment tools, a lack of diagnostic relevance, and the potential for erroneous pathology or abnormal behaviors, especially when we consider the argument that gaming and interaction with computer technology and the internet are hallmarks of contemporary modern societies. Broader, when we think about these issues as it addresses the profession, medical, public health, societal, rights-based ramifications are present if we do not address the issue of confounding clinical validity. It can result in medical maltreatment due to moral panic, harm to the reputation of medical and psychological institutions, wasted financial resources across the institutional and non-institutional strata, stigmatization of recreation and entertainment industries and activities, and lastly, exacerbating conflict in the parent-child relationship. So ultimately leading to disharmony in the familial home. So you might ask, what should be done? Well, I've got some recommendations, okay? The APA should officially declare problematic gaming as a disorder. The research community should agree upon a definitive construct for this phenomenon while considering normative, contemporary societal use of computer technology and the internet. They should also evaluate potential screening and assessment tools to arrive at a standardized of screening and evaluation, which is something that I'm working on as well. The world governments should implement prevention strategies and then evaluate the efficaciousness of those strategies to identify the overall impact. East Asian countries led recent efforts to measure prevention program efficacy and impact. Germany developed potential or prevention and awareness campaigns. There are current governmental policies in 7 countries: US, UK, Australia, Germany, China, Japan, and South Korea. Other non-governmental policy and prevention campaigns are not measured for efficacy and/or impact. Most awareness campaigns are also aimed at school settings, which isn't enough. Societies across nations would benefit from evidence-based problematic online gaming policies and prevention campaigns for all citizens. Private industry should report gamer use data and collection methods. And lastly, the WHO has recently committed to collecting and disseminating information on the excessive use of the internet, computers, and smartphones to bring awareness to problematic online gaming behaviors and a source of data for researchers. I thank you for your attention today and welcome to the conference.